So I want you to imagine for a second that your entire industry is just being completely swallowed by artificial intelligence.
Oh, which is a terrifying thought.
Right. Like your competitors are laying off staff left and right. They're
Yeah.
automating their supply chains, generating code at light speed. What is your very first move as a leader?
Most people would probably panic and buy another subscription to something.
Exactly. But according to this highly secretive, super intensive experience being held for Silicon Valley elites next month, the answer is actually not to buy more software. The answer is to like step away, get on a boat, and literally go for a bike ride with flowers in your hair.
It sounds completely counterintuitive.
It really does. But today we're doing a deep dive into exactly why that might be the smartest move you could make. I'm your host, by the way.
And I'll be your expert guide for this deep dive. And, when we are faced with a massive technological threat, our default human response is always just to work harder.
Yeah, to like process more data.
Right, to try and outcalculate the machine. But what we are exploring today proposes that trying to beat an algorithm at its own game is not only futile, it's biologically destructive.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this right now, I want you to just think about your last 48 hours. How many times did you feel that really subtle kind of sinking panic that an algorithm could do your job faster or, maybe even better?
Everyone is feeling that right now. It's this constant friction.
It is. And that feeling of being cognitively outpaced is really the core focus of today's deep dive. We're looking at this fascinating prospectus plus some internal planning documents for an event happening next month in May 2026.
And it has a very striking name.
Yeah, it's called the Transformation Biohacking Journey, and it's being designed and led by a woman named Eve Simon. The materials describe her as a futurist, an author, a mother, and a nature lover.
Which is such a specific, intentional combination of titles, don't you think? Like, she isn't just presenting herself as another tech bro optimization guru.
No, definitely not. Okay, let's unpack this because the curriculum she has built here is targeting founders who are just starting out, as well as these really established leaders who are just drowning in AI overwhelm.
Yeah, and the internal mandate of this trip it's pretty intense. It's to facilitate a radical pivot.
Right. They want to shift participants away from thinking and into sensing.
Exactly. Moving away from just reacting to external threats and toward leading from within. And instead of desperately chasing the future, the goal is to lock into what is currently emerging.
Okay, I have to stop you there because my first instinct as a skeptical observer is to just roll my eyes a little bit.
I get that. It sounds a bit woo-woo.
It does. Like, if my company is failing because an AI competitor is eating my lunch, stepping away from the data to go feel the breeze just feels irresponsible.
Yeah.
So convince me I'm wrong here.
Well, let's look at the terminology. The word biohacking is right in the title, right?
Yeah, but wait, biohacking usually means taking really expensive supplements or plunging into ice baths at 5 a.m.
Or wearing 3 different sleep trackers just to squeeze out another hour of productivity.
Right. So how is walking through a redwood forest biohacking?
That is exactly where this curriculum flips the script. Standard biohacking treats the human body like a machine that just needs, a software update to run faster.
Like we're just bad computers.
Exactly. But Eve's underlying philosophy here implies that when you are dealing with cognitive overload, which is exactly what happens when you try to compete with AI, upgrading your machine is just a losing battle.
Because the AI is always going to be faster.
Always. It will always process data faster. It will synthesize more information. So biohacking in this context isn't about manipulating your biology to compute faster.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it is about hacking your physical environment to regulate your nervous system. It's about finding that human edge that algorithms simply do not have.
The edge. Meaning like the things you literally cannot code.
Precisely, because algorithms can compute, right? But they can't sense.
They don't have intuition.
No. A machine learning model cannot walk into a boardroom and just feel the subtle shifts in human dynamics. It can't detect the cultural energy of a burnt out team.
That makes a lot of sense. And the materials actually explicitly state this is not a traditional self-optimization retreat. They use some heavy language. They call it an identity-level transformation.
And an initiation.
Right, initiation,
Hmm.
which a retreat implies you are running away to hide from your inbox.
Yeah, just taking a break.
But a threshold or an initiation implies you're crossing over into a completely new way of operating in the world.
And crossing an identity level threshold doesn't really happen while sitting in a beige hotel conference room staring at PowerPoint slides.
Definitely not. Which brings us to a wildly creative aspect of this prospectus. The curriculum doesn't just take place in California. It literally uses the actual geography of California as a tool,
Yeah, the documentation calls the environment a live transmission field.
which at first glance sounds like pure mysticism.
Mhm.
But when you really look at the itinerary, it is deeply rooted in environmental psychology. It's almost like treating the geography of California as a giant energetic soundboard, and Eve is just turning a different frequency dial on each day of the week.
I love that analogy. Let's break down how they actually use that environment, because the psychological sequencing here is just vital.
Yeah, let's look at the dates. It kicks off on the weekend of May 9th and 10th.
Right, and that opening weekend is dedicated entirely to grounding. Participants arrive in the Bay Area, and the instructions they get are incredibly disarming.
Yeah, they might take a boat ride on the bay, or, like I said earlier, bike through Golden Gate Park. And the instructions playfully suggest leaving all corporate baggage behind.
It's deliberately jarring, actually.
Oh, for sure. You are bringing in these hard-charging tech founders who are practically vibrating with stress, and your very first instruction is, don't get on a bike.
Right. It forces a complete pattern interrupt before the actual work of the week even begins.
And I imagine that pattern interrupt is biologically necessary for what comes next.
It is, because once the nervous system is grounded over the weekend, the curriculum intentionally injects them right into the chaos.
Right, Monday, May 11th, they head straight into Silicon Valley.
But the documentation makes a very sharp distinction here. This is not a tourist day.
Right, they are going to take selfies in front of the Googleplex.
No, they are going there to tap into the raw creation energy of the valley. The focus isn't like, oh, what is the newest tech? The focus is deeply introspective. It's asking, what am I creating?
And then, by Wednesday, they plunge right into the city of San Francisco itself.
Yeah, and the focus shifts to the city's ecosystem, its diversity, its edge, its inherent disruption.
The notes mention they're meeting visionary thinkers and potentially even building a startup on the spot.
Yeah.
Just like spontaneous, rapid-fire creation.
Looking at the structure, it makes perfect sense. It's kind of like tempering steel.
Oh, how so?
Well, you don't just hold the metal in the fire indefinitely, right? It will melt. You have to heat it up in the chaos of Silicon Valley and San Francisco, but you can only do that if the metal has been properly prepared.
So the geography is literally acting as a thermal regulation system for their brains.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it, because if you take a burnt-out executive and drop them directly into the relentless disruption of San Francisco without that initial weekend of grounding,
They would just snap.
yeah, they will just experience a trauma response. They'll tighten up. They will go right back into their defensive, reactive thinking mode.
Wow. So by grounding the body first, their nervous system is prepared to actually absorb the chaos of the tech capital.
Exactly, and synthesize it into insight rather than just generating more anxiety.
Well, they're going to need every single ounce of that nervous system regulation because this entire geographical buildup is just preparing them for the absolute peak of the week.
Yeah, the anchor event.
Right. This is where the collision of humanity and technology is placed front and center. I'm looking at the events scheduled for Tuesday and Thursday.
These are definitely the heavy intellectual and emotional lifts of the journey.
Okay, so on Tuesday, May 12th, they integrate into Human Tech Week. And the prospectus is super quick to clarify that this isn't just passively listening to thought leaders pontificate about AI from a stage.
No, the day is described as experiential, somatic, and energetic. The goal is exploring how to use AI for the right reasons.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because there is this very strange detail in the prospectus that I kept getting stuck on. It mentions somatic and energetic AI.
Right.
I have to be honest, those sound like complete oxymorons to me. How on earth do you make an algorithm somatic? Like, how do you feel a large language model in your physical body?
It sounds contradictory until you really look at the biological mechanism behind it. The focus of somatic AI isn't on the code itself. You aren't feeling a Python script in your muscles. The focus is entirely on the human biological system that is handling the code. Think about the physical reaction that happens when a leader reads a terrifying headline about AI automating their entire sector.
Oh, the stomach drops. The heart rate spikes.
Exactly. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, it just hijacks the system.
Triggers a fight or flight response.
Right. And when that happens, blood literally leaves the prefrontal cortex.
And that's the area of your brain responsible for long-term strategic planning.
Right. empathy, creative problem solving, all of it. So somatic AI means realizing that you are physically incapable of making good business decisions when you are in a state of technological panic.
Because your body is literally treating a software update like a physical predator.
Yes. So the goal isn't to intellectually outstrategize the software in that moment.
The goal is to notice the physical tightening in your shoulders, maybe regulate your breathing, and get the blood flow back to your executive brain.
You got it. You cannot lead effectively if your physical body is locked in a state of constant low-grade terror about the future. You have to master your internal hardware before you can manage the external software.
Master your internal hardware. I like that.
And mastering that internal hardware is really the only way these participants will survive the massive existential hurdle they face on Thursday, May 14th.
Right, which brings us to Wisdom 2.0. This event is held at SF Jazz, and it brings tech leaders and mindfulness practitioners together in direct dialogue.
And this is where the core, truly terrifying question of this entire deep dive is explicitly posed.
Yeah, the agenda literally asks, when machines take over our cognitive power, what is left for humanity?
I mean, just let the weight of that question sit for a moment.
It's heavy.
It is arguably the defining philosophical question of our era, because for generations, human value in the marketplace has been tied to our cognitive superiority.
Right, our ability to calculate, organize, and analyze has been our primary currency.
And suddenly, a machine can do in 4 seconds what used to take a team of analysts 4 weeks.
The reflection materials in these documents indicate that this day at Wisdom 2.0 gets incredibly personal. It isn't just some abstract debate about society at large.
No, it forces these highly successful, highly intelligent leaders to confront their own obsolescence on a cognitive level.
It asks them to basically grieve the loss of their intellectual dominance and find their intrinsic value somewhere else.
And grappling with that kind of ego death is just exhausting. You are tracing an incredibly intense psychological arc here.
Oh yeah, you go from the physical grounding of the weekend to the raw creation energy of Monday to the somatic reality of Tuesday.
Right into this heavy existential confrontation on Thursday.
Navigating questions about the future of humanity and your own fundamental purpose has to take a massive physiological toll.
Which means to actually absorb any of this without completely burning out, the brain needs to literally cool down.
Because you can't have an existential crisis on Thursday and then just like fly back to your corporate office on Friday morning and pretend everything is normal.
You would shatter.
You really would. And that necessity leads us into the final and arguably most crucial phase of the curriculum, the integration.
The cool down phase.
Right. So Friday through the weekend, May 15th to the 17th, the itinerary shifts entirely. They head back to Marin County for grounding, perhaps hiking deep in the redwoods.
More, the notes say they might take a trip up to wine country to soak in the mineral baths at Harbin Hot Springs.
The stated goal here is a nervous system reset. It's about integrating the mind, the body, and the heart. And the entire week officially wraps up on Sunday with a Hawaiian-themed party at Eve's Yacht Club.
You know, the inclusion of Harbin Hot Springs is such a potent environmental mechanism. Think about the sensory contrast there.
Oh, between the city and the springs.
Yeah. After spending a week confronting the cold, hard, frictionless logic of artificial intelligence and absorbing all that frantic, high-stakes energy of Silicon Valley,
Submerging your physical body in warm, natural, mineral-rich water is like the ultimate biological antidote.
it brings the participants violently back into their physical senses. It forces the realization that you are a biological organism deeply connected to the earth.
Not just a meat casing for a hard drive.
Exactly.
It washes off the digital residue. And as we look closer at how this cool-down phase is structured, there's a fascinating logistical choice that really highlights how different this is from standard networking events.
Yeah, the housing situation.
Yes. The internal documents reveal a deliberate strategy to keep the group extremely small. They even suggest that the participants might share an Airbnb together for the entire duration of the trip.
Which completely dismantles traditional executive boundaries.
It really does. I mean, imagine a group of highly successful Type A founders and CEOs. These are people who are used to flying first class, right?
Oh, absolutely. Staying in 5-star private suites where they can just isolate themselves at the end of the day.
And forcing them to share a house, making them brew coffee together in the kitchen at 6 a.m. after debating the end of human cognition the night before that. That forces a level of intimacy that destroys any attempt at surface-level networking.
You cannot maintain a corporate facade when you are living in close quarters and going through a shared psychological initiation. The executive armor has to come off.
It really does. And this brings us to a really compelling piece of the puzzle, which is the financial structure and the unique positioning of the guide herself.
The cost breakdown outlined in the notes is wild.
It is. Participants pay $1,900 for the journey, and the document is very transparent, pointing out that $1,900 is essentially just Eve's standard one-day consulting rate.
But for that single day's rate, they get her guidance for the entire week.
Right. So they do cover their own travel, food, and hotel expenses.
Yeah.
But honestly, what really caught my eye wasn't the price point. It was a direct quote from Eve in her internal voice notes.
Oh, this quote is so good.
She says, and I quote, "This will also be my week of going crazy, going to the edge, going deep."
That is a remarkable, deeply unconventional statement from a professional facilitator.
It breaks every single rule of traditional executive coaching. Usually, the guru at the front of the room is selling certainty
Right. They stand at the whiteboard, project absolute confidence.
and act perfectly optimized, as if they hold the secret map to the future. But here, the guide is explicitly telling her clients that she doesn't have it all figured out, and she is going to the edge right alongside them,
She is actively choosing vulnerability over authority.
which is such a risk.
It is. But if we look at the anthropological definition of an initiation, that vulnerability is the secret ingredient. A true initiation requires a guide who has been through the fire, but who is still willing to walk into the flames with you.
That makes sense.
Because if she stood at the front of the room and pretended that she had perfectly mastered the AI shift and felt no fear whatsoever, it would just be another lecture.
It would just be more cognitive overload for the participants to consume.
Exactly. By admitting she is also going to the edge, it creates psychological safety. It gives these powerful leaders permission to drop their own masks and say out loud, I have no idea what the future holds, and I am terrified of this technology too.
It levels the playing field completely. It shifts the dynamic from top-down instruction to collective sense-making.
It really does.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all of this out of the California redwoods and into the real world. How does this highly specific, immersive initiation translate to you, the listener, who might just be sitting in traffic right now, trying to figure out how to get through a work week without being entirely overwhelmed by the relentless pace of innovation?
Well, I think the ultimate lesson hidden in this curriculum is that the goal of this specific era in history isn't just to learn about artificial intelligence.
Taking a coding class or reading another white paper won't save you from the overwhelm.
No, the goal is to recalibrate your fundamental identity inside the AI shift.
And you don't necessarily need to book a flight to San Francisco and soak in a hot spring to realize that you need a biological pivot.
Though it sounds nice.
It does sound nice. But if your company is facing a massive technological threat, your first response shouldn't necessarily be to lock yourself in a room and stare at spreadsheets until your eyes bleed.
Right. Shifting your internal orientation from reacting to sensing, from trying to outprocess the machine to trusting your deeply human intuition might be the single most vital leadership skill you can cultivate right now.
Let's make that incredibly concrete. Imagine an AI system analyzes your company's metrics and determines that, for maximum efficiency, you need to fire 10% of your staff immediately.
Okay, so the CEO who is stuck in thinking mode, the one competing with the algorithm, looks at the math, agrees with the logic, and executes the layoff.
Just blindly following the data.
Exactly. But the CEO who is shifted into sensing mode receives that same data, but then actually walks the floor of the office.
They sense the cultural fragility.
Yes. They feel that the team is already stretched to the breaking point. They realize that executing those layoffs, while mathematically correct, will completely collapse morale and ultimately kill the company's creative output.
So the sensing CEO uses the data, but relies on their human nervous system to make the final, nuanced decision.
The machine provides the map, but the human has to feel the terrain.
I love that. The machine provides the map, but the human feels the terrain.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a critical, lingering thought to mull over. We talked about that terrifying question posed at Wisdom 2.0.
Yeah.
What is left for humanity when machines take over our cognitive power?
Right.
Well, if our ability to draft emails, organize logistics, balance ledgers, and analyze market trends is rapidly being outsourced to silicon, then our real value in the marketplace is no longer found in what we can think.
It is a terrifying realization, but once you accept it, it is profoundly liberating.
It forces a total reevaluation of worth. If the algorithm handles the thinking, then our true, irreplaceable value is strictly in what we can sense.
It's the empathy we can hold for a struggling client,
It is the energetic presence we bring into a chaotic boardroom. It is our ability to connect seemingly unrelated dots through a lens of lived, deeply human experience.
Wow.
So, the question you have to ask yourself tomorrow morning is this: are you spending too much time trying to endlessly upgrade your software and not nearly enough time upgrading the capacity of your nervous system?
Because at the end of the day, when that little notification bubble pops up telling you the world has fundamentally changed yet again, there is no quick update button for your human hardware. You actually have to do the work of feeling it.